I'm super excited to be here at US Rowing, and glad that I have Chris and Brett here because they have jumped in. We just met with parents of junior rowers, and they were super helpful filling in all the information that I don't have. I have 2 junior age rowers myself. Well, no, they're not rowers, but they're still my kids, and a 7th grader and a 9th grader. And I'm here in New York City, and that's where Row New York is. And it's fun to see people from all over the country. And I'm joined by my colleagues, Jack Smith, who just started recently assisting us on all things. He's taking notes. So if it looks like I'm not taking notes, it's because he is. Thanks, Jack. And then Brett Gorman and Chris Chase. Brett, do you want to say anything or introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Brett Gorman, and I am Director of Coach Education currently for USRowing. I've also worked with our U23 team for the last 4 years, but I'm really listening in because, I'm always looking for, how can we create coach education content for y'all, and I'll mostly be in the background and tech support here and let Chris and Amanda kind of tackle any questions y'all have. But yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Brett. And Chris?
Hey guys, Chris Chase, formerly of Saratoga Rowing and now with US Rowing. And judging by the last talk that we just got off with parents and athletes, this will be driven by you guys. So we don't have a template or something that we've created content. We're actually hoping that you will ask questions, and Amanda's here to listen. And if you are looking for answers, if we can answer, we'll give them to you, and so on. So we'll turn it over to you guys to get things rolling.
Yeah.
And we have Casey too.
Yeah, I was going to say, and Casey, do you want, way to put you on the spot, but Casey, do you want to introduce yourself or say anything? Or do you want Chris to talk for you?
It's always best if somebody else speaks. No, anyway, my name is Casey. I'm on here. Honestly, I'm on here to listen to what everybody else has to say or questions they have, just so if I can play any role in providing a better solution, that I heard it firsthand.
Yeah, and thanks, Casey. And just to say what I said to the parents of the junior rowers, I think, all of our stakeholders are important. I think that our juniors are, super, super important. They are the future of the sport. We are so motivated to help them become great athletes and great teammates, and to help you all as their coaches, and to be a resource to you all. So originally when I set these Zoom listening tours, it truly is just to listen. I don't have a lot of answers yet because I just started last month. But if you do have specific questions, probably Chris is better at answering them. I can try. But mostly my goal, selfishly, is to hear from you all. So you should tell us the things that you want to see happen or change, the resources we can provide. This is supposed to be less about us talking and more about you talking and telling us things. One thing I started out with the last group, which was helpful, and also thank you in advance for your time, because I know people are already spending a lot of time on Zoom. So thanks for adding to that. But maybe if people can put into the chat too, where you're coming from. So what club, or, what city or state or location. Oh, great. Oh, Ohio, Texas. This is so much fun. Billy, that's great. Oh, Liz, you're here. Hello. Okay, nice. New Jersey. Wyandotte. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Wyandotte. Chris, is that right? Is that right? Oh, good.
Yeah, you're doing fine.
Okay. Yep. Liz, Connecticut Boat Club. More Philly. Excellent. Okay. Cleveland. One-time UMass Amherst coach. Chris, nice. All right. Looks like we have people from all over. Great. In Norwalk. So we have a good mix of people from all over the country, a couple Florida. That's excellent too. I think my first question for you all, which you can put into the chat just to get us warmed up, is pre-COVID. So pretend there's no COVID for a moment, treat yourselves to that. what's the reason that you coach juniors? Just in one word, if you can put it into the chat, just to get us warmed up a little bit. Like, what is it about coaching juniors? I mean, I love coaching juniors. It's one of my favorite things in the entire world. I think they're so much fun and they're so funny and they think they're so grown up and they're not, but they are. They're so raw and real and funny again. Character, yeah, they are sponges. Definitely. The excitement. Yeah. The challenge of coaching them. Yeah. I think adults are harder to coach than teenagers. Anyone? Yes? No? Adults? I think adults are way harder. Yeah, growth, development, their playlists. Yes, very true. They keep us young and they age us at the same time. Okay, great. What's challenging? And remember, let's treat ourselves to not, because I know what's challenging right now about COVID. We know. What's challenging about coaching juniors in the regular, non-COVID times? What's challenging?
Oh, I bet you I know one word.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, there we go. Chance, there we go. I took care of that.
Chance wins. I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. Does anyone have anything else besides parents? That's why, as a parent of young athletes now, I think we probably all overcompensate with my kids' coaches. Like, I never text them or email. I never say anything except "thank you. Do you need anything?" Right? Not just constantly changing. Yeah, changing bodies and maturity, definitely. Dealing with schedules, planning, not pushing them too soon. Yeah. What else is challenging about coaching juniors? Team dynamics, is that ever an issue? Oh, right, other sports, balancing busy lives, yes. Club and high school worlds, right. Okay, so money affordability for families, that came up in the last Zoom, yes. Is that an issue for other people, the affordability? Thumbs up, thumbs down, maybe? Okay, we had some thumbs up, a little bit, okay. Building culture, huge. Does that huge means that's a huge problem? Yeah. Okay. Dealing with their personal issues. I know, they're teenagers. It's hard being a teenager. Okay. All right, affordability. Yes. Okay. Yeah, affordability. This is like, I love challenges. Obviously, that's why I took this job. And that's a big one for us to think about together as we move forward. Another thing I should have said when I started is this is not the only conversation I hope we ever have. I am here, for a while and happy to keep the conversation going. So don't think this is like one Zoom and we're done. Okay. Not being a school sport. Right. Probably good things about that too, maybe, but also not. Okay, so now let's move into, we know the joys and we know the challenges. What do you all think, and let's start actually a conversation. So, I mean, if you're shy, you can put it in the chat, but what are the things that US Rowing can be doing to help you all? Like, what are the resources we can be providing? What can we do to be helpful?
All right, so I'm not shy. One of the challenges, and Les is laughing because she knows that. One of the challenges I face is I'm a true scholastic program in this iteration, and true scholastic programs get lost in the shuffle behind clubs. Aside from the fact that we are competing with clubs for rowers, which is challenging, but US Rowing has not always seemed, I'll put it that way, supportive of the idea that a true high school sport program really solves some problems of affordability and access because it allows students to have equal access to sports, whereas the club model requires direct cash from family. I love clubs, don't get me wrong, I know a lot of club coaches, but I think we've ignored the possibility for a long time that we could help districts and schools, both private and public, discover that they could have crew programs at a cost lower than some of the other sports they're offering, because we've always been driven and we're also used to the club model.
And how would that just good? I love that. How would that help manifest itself, Chance? Like, what would US Rowing do to support that? Those high school, is it different races? Is it?
It's somewhat different. Some different races allow, support of the scholastic racing community that's already out there. But it also would be helping collect information on what it takes to start a program, not a club, but a program for a school that's, for district or a school that's looking at it. Working with other schools, and not every school is the right model. There are a bunch of different scholastic models out there. But just feeling like we exist as something other than a feeder ground to either draw kids to clubs or draw kids to collegiate programs.
Right. I love that. Okay. So more direct support to these high school programs, and helping new high school programs get started probably too.
Just information wise, it's not, no one's looking for money, but just, when a local school started a new program about 6 years ago, they were just calling into the wind, and 3 or 4 of us other coaches in our area took them by the hand, showed them how to, here's what a fleet costs, here's how to hire a coach. And in a perfect world, the US Rowing would actually have that just a piece on the website.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's very doable, right? Is that we're the resource, send them to us and we can tell them how to do this.
I mean, I think that's applicable though for clubs and for scholastic heavily though. I mean, you go anywhere, small scholastic programs, maybe you need to start with 3 high schools to pull together to start one team, but you nailed it. How to start a program. I mean, we had Row America try to do that here and there, but there's no out of the box answers that we've been able to provide or offer. And so the barriers to actually start anything when you're looking at, starting 8, where's your $20,000 to $40,000?
Right. What do you need? What do
you don't have oars to row that with yet.
Yeah. And people not even knowing what they don't know, right? In terms of what their needs will be. Yeah. Okay. This is great. We can do that. Okay. What else? Leslie?
Hi, Leslie Pfeil from the PSRA. I actually spend quite a bit of time talking to schools from all over the country, even out of our region, who call me and say, how do I start a team at our high school? Because that's one thing we do know about. And we're always, I just love talking to people about it. And there's a lot we can do to help teams, because I think that one of the best way to increase diversity and inclusion is through a high school team. And I think with the most beautiful thing. I mean, I think that was a perfect example. You can, because it's so easy for a kid to just walk on the team, and you can encourage more kids and recruit more kids through your own high school. Again, I have nothing against clubs, and clubs are great. That's no problem there. But I think it's just so much easier to, if you want to talk about inclusion and diversity, to get kids. And Chance can probably talk about this too, because I know his team has done a lot of this. But I think it would be great to have some maybe organized way to reach out or be available to high school parents, kids, whoever, teachers who want to start a program at their own school. Because I kind of do it informally. People hear like, oh, I hear somebody say, oh, Leslie,
Right.
And I'll talk to them, and it's kind of informal. But I think that there's ways we could probably communicate that better, because I also believe, and I'll get off my soapbox in a minute here.
No, it's all good.
One of the best ways to develop rowing and to increase more people participating in rowing is through high school teams. And now you're getting middle school kids involved some places too, and that's even better because you're getting them before some other sport can truly capture them. So that's I'm all for that. I agree with Chase.
Yeah, I think there are ways that we can help high schools. I think there were ways that US Rowing could specifically help high schools, because even if we don't have the financial resources, we could target schools serving kids from under-resourced communities and say, hey, we have a pitch for you of how you could start a program in-house for your school. So it's a great
idea how to do it. I mean, it's funny, some of the things that they say, well, I think we're going to do this. And I'll go, oh, no, don't do that first. Do this.
Yeah.
Make sure you have this first, or make sure you have that. And so, it's even people who are former rowers, and a lot of them are, adults, they don't really have any idea how to get the school on board with it. That's
right.
a challenge.
That's helpful. Thank you. What else?
I've got a struggle that I've had.
Oh, sorry, Patrick.
A struggle that I've had is my school district is very behind the team, but I coach at a Title I school, so the majority of my kids are on free or reduced lunch. So it's getting the interest from the kids to join the team. That's my struggle. So kind of connecting with other teams that have done that, because there aren't any in my area that have been through that same thing at my type of school with my kids. But
yeah, where are you, Patrick?
Cincinnati. I'm at Winton Woods in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
So, and we're on a lake by ourselves.
Yeah.
So like
I know that feeling.
Building that culture has been a struggle, because they don't see other teams except for when we're at a race.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are ways we can think about how do we build community within, this effort, this DEI effort. How do we help people not, whether it's the coaches, administrators, kids, not feel so sort of alone in that process, right? Can we be the connector? Okay, what else, Stephen?
I coach at an independent school, and so what I'm about to say may sound kind of strange, but the public schools in the area where I am have wanted to piggyback. So several of them have wanted, and in fact, one actually is doing it. Is trying to do it. It wanted to piggyback off the dock and sort of local setup that we're working on. And one of the troubles that they have had, I had it too, but they really seem to have it because of the way that their schools are funded. It's just sort of getting information for their administrators as to like what it's all going to cost and what it's all going to look like. I almost feel as though if there were a 2-page or 4-pager that said, hey, this is what it takes to start a rowing program directed to the school board and the taxpayers, that could be helpful, I think, for some of the public school districts, at least in our area.
Yeah, and very easy for us to make too. I love that. This is great. You guys are doing my job. See you tomorrow. No. Okay, what else, Chris?
Yeah, I was say I am a public school in the area. And our program started in 2014, and we just started having a conversation with our administration about the possibility of them giving us some money, which they have not done up to this point. But I will echo, when the administration asked me to go out and find information about it, I was going through multiple board doc websites, to look up school board meetings and look up what teacher supplementals were, and calling people I knew that happened to be on the board of a local school somewhere to try to gather information. Because we're, at this point, we're sort of like a club scholastic program, because since we get no money from the school, which is not unlike a lot of scholastic programs out there, they're paying club dues to row at a scholastic program. But just gathering that information, an organization like USRowing, it's going to be much easier for USRowing to gather that information than me out in horse country in Pennsylvania.
Right, and we could have a template that you all use too, where you can customize, right, for your program, but a template for like, this is a starter budget for a rowing program for X number of kids, and this is what coaches get paid, and this is what, how you would do the certification, and then I think maybe it could be more impactful if it's coming from, it's what your package to administrators is coming from the governing body, and you had that support. Okay.
But also understanding that there's long-term costs that go with that as well. So there's costs associated with just starting the team, but then there's also costs, what's it going to cost 5 years down the road? Equipment's going to need to be replaced or acquired or added to, and just knowing those costs as well. Yeah.
Well, this is something I actually, it's always nice in a new job when you actually know how to do something. This is one thing I do know how to do. So that's, I think that's a fun project. And like Leslie, I think probably there's so many of us who have had this conversation informally with people all the time, right? How do I start a program? How do I reach more kids from under-resourced communities? How do I keep them involved? And we're all so happy to have the conversations, but there are also only so many hours in the day. Can we codify all of this and share it? Which is great. What's the best way? We're going to also come back to other resources, but other ways we can be helpful. But Chris asked this in the last group with the parents, but what's the best way to get information to you all? Is it on the website? Is it, I mean, I know we're all inundated, right, with emails, and, you know, should we have a targeted, I don't know if we do, Chris, or have a targeted email already list for coaches, junior coaches?
Well, one of the things I made recently was I went through every regatta through last year and the year before, and anybody who's put in any entries at any regatta on Regatta Central, we have all the emails. So we just made a list of like 789 head coaches and then whomever else happened to be on it. So we do have that. You know, the hard part is that, you know, there's so much stuff going out every Wednesday on the newsletter that most of you don't read it anymore. And you want the information you want when you want it, but you don't want to read every Wednesday to get to the information. So then when the information that you're looking for, you want it right now and it's not there, there's some frustration. And then, you know, what I found out in COVID is every month we updated COVID with the next rendition. So we had COVID 1.0, COVID 2.0, and so on for 7 months. And people would just, it was easier just to call my number and say, what's going on with COVID? And I'd ask almost all of you, like, did you go to the website? And the answer was no. You didn't go to the website. I never go to the website.
Well, when we have you, Chris, we don't need to go to the website.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. It sounds great, like a good plan. But I mean, like, you know, over the years, our website, USRowing's website, has been horrible. And so people just got trained not to go there anymore.
Right.
And so now that it's actually kind of being tied together, we've been trained for 2 decades not to go there. And so, my question, the nature of my question, everybody, was, you know, where do you get your information from? And other than the coach down the road that makes stuff up because he doesn't know the answer, where do you actually, like, where would you go for, you know, if you're not going to do it on the newsletter, and you're not going to do it on the website, where do you actually go to get information? Like, where's the best way for us to reach coaches? Would it be a targeted list?
I mean, a targeted list, or actually, so just the website, which has everything in the world on it, right? You're looking for news, sponsorships, all that other stuff in the world. An actual dashboard for coaches or clubs that is specific to our operations. And you can click and have it just be juniors or just collegiate or all the above, but an actual built out dashboard.
Yeah.
That is for active programs. And I know there's the membership portal kind of has that, but it is a little clunky right now. And it was taken more advantage of when we did with the COVID videos and stuff. I saw those added there. It was a lot better, but something that is clean, that is known that we're actually going to be utilizing, that we can go to in one click there, like coaches.usrowing.org.
Yeah. I love that. I also love that Chris just goes right to Leslie. Keeping it real there. I'm going to start just going to Leslie.
Yeah, ask Leslie where she goes to. Mary put in some great ideas, and you know what the craziest thing, Mary, is all those things that you wrote there, we have, because we've been doing the business of rowing for 10 years now.
Yeah.
And those are the things that we collected. We just don't have it in a place that's a resource center. And so more than 2/3 of you on this call are in my resource center, but US Rowing doesn't have one. Like, most of you are on mine. Like, I see you shaking your heads because like that, all that stuff's in there, but we don't have a common place where we can send all of our coaches to. That was one of the goals this year, Amanda, was to build out that resource center. Bigger than what we see right now when you go to your member portal, there's the videos. Well, there's like 17,000 documents that we have ready to go that we just haven't put out.
You need more Red Bull.
So thanks for calling it out, Chris, because my experience is exactly what we're talking about here, where Leslie says people call her up because they want information. And so once you've been coaching or in the rowing world for a little time, you have this network, and then you reach out to the network. And like coaching salaries is a good example to say, what are you paying your assistant coaches? and then you can get kind of a ballpark range, and then you have an idea of what East Coast versus West Coast is, but you're doing the tracking and the data collecting without being able to say, actually, let me go to US Rowing. They have this information, and it doesn't need to say what is X coach making, but just a nice centralized resource of this collective data that we're all chasing down on a regular basis. I think, especially since you have it on hand, would be amazing.
So one thing, Mary, I got our Zoom ended, but what I was in the middle of saying in the last one was, one of the goals is to create a US Rowing app and have a digital platform so we can capture I can't say every need of everyone involved in rowing, but all of your rowing needs. So if you're a parent who wants to know, how do I get to this regatta, or you need to know the rules of rowing, or how do I fix a skeg? I'm a new coach, I'm embarrassed to ask. Have like all the most useful things. You can track your team on there. I mean, this is going to take time and resources, but it should be eventually like a one-stop shop for all of these things. Obviously, we're not there. One question I have for you all, this is something I had in my old role. We used a Slack channel for, and Chris is going to hate this idea, but we had multiple, we used Slack and we had channels in Slack so you could have conversations. This is for a women's executive director group, and people have so many of the same questions. So, how do you deal with health insurance, or how do you structure paid time off? Or, I wonder with this group are we anti-Slack, or do people have opinions on it? Chance?
So Slack I've looked at it for a couple different, my other job is a CFO hat, so that's kind of where I live.
Okay. Just so you know, we're hiring a new CFO, COO. So I will be spreading the word with all of you.
Maybe a call. But Slack is interesting, but there are some costs involved with Slack, and Slack can be messy. The same issue we all have. I know a lot of coaches use GroupMe. It's the same. Similar issues in there. But that said, some opportunity for what they used to call in teaching circles a Ning, or the other term, just a listserv. You can go to for regular questions and just bounce them off the listserv. And, there are only 10 or 15 people who are active at any given day.
Right.
In the course of a week, probably 60% of the people in my CFO community are answering questions. It's also one where you can then bang out little notes like, hey, everybody, remember it's anti-competitive to talk about salaries directly, but you can talk about general, so we can keep general statements there without going specific, and then people can go offline when they need to for questions that are better.
Right, you can direct message everybody too.
Yeah.
Would people use Slack, or are we anti-Slack, pro-Slack? This group?
I think the only
Chris isn't sure. He has Leslie. Chris, we're not even listening to you anymore.
I don't even know what Slack is.
I was just trying not to have too many different channels. Right.
Right.
So if you're trying to make resources here, there, we talk about emails, we talk about, honestly, if you build out, not to harp on, I in web application development for a living. So there we go. Using that hat on. If you build out the right kind of dashboard and that kind of, then you can actually, we don't have a full on Slack, but you can kind of create some sort of community environment there too.
Oh.
And at least, so we go into one spot rather than trying to look in 3 different areas or communicate. Right. We're doing one spot, right? I think that's probably half of us that haven't done anything virtual when it comes to coaching. It's been chasing down. Okay, I'm using GroupMe for this. I'm using Google Classroom for this. I'm using Zoom for that.
Yeah.
Can I just get one thing?
So you're saying on the website, like build it into the website?
Yeah.
Can we do that? I feel like I'm turning this into Kyle. Can we do that?
Yeah, Kyle. What are you doing over the
Yes, we can if Chris says yes, and then you say okay to the budget. Yes.
Okay, we'll talk offline.
Yeah, Kyle. Do you have any free time in January? I'm asking for a friend.
Okay, how else can we be? Yeah, seriously though, do we have Kyle's information? How else can we be helpful? Like, what other ideas as coaches of juniors? You guys have already shared so many good ideas, and other people we haven't heard from yet. Coach C.
Hi, Antoinette. One of the things that I think US Rowing needs to do a better job at is retention for those athletes in high school who may not be rowing collegiately, either because there are no programs that they're, at the school they've chosen, or they're just athletically not going to be recruited anywhere. if this is a lifelong sport, you've now kind of like disconnected a whole group of athletes who potentially could be feeders into like the referee corps or volunteers, or maybe they will inevitably continue, you know, joining a club either in college, after college, and will be a master's, you know, participant. But in terms of, you know, that paradigm, I think going back to, you know, way back what Chase was saying, you know, it's hard being scholastic sometimes because the focus is so much club, especially in the Philadelphia area. There are a couple ones for, you know, I come from a small medium program, and, you know, I've seen my program like decimated because they run, because they are like, oh, I've got to go here so I can get into that school. And then the kids who stay with me, I might have one or two who will advance collegiately, but then the rest, it's like, you know, they're wondering how they can still stay involved. And I don't think necessarily historically US Rowing has done a good job with retaining those athletes.
Well, so absolutely. And there's a huge drop off, right? That's a fact, that there's a huge drop off, and that statistically speaking, there just are more junior rowers, right, than there are college seats. But a question I have is, I don't know, and maybe this is a question for you, Chris, or coach, of course, Kyle, yes. How do we literally just strategically or tactically, how do we have the contact of those young people? I don't know that we even have those junior rowers like in our database or in our, right?
Well, there's two parts to this answer. Number one, you know, obviously, well, let's start all over. US Rowing realized even Amanda that juniors had to do more with juniors, and that's why and how I got hired last year. And then of course, so that was last August. So US Rowing's been trying to make out, you know, to build bridges to the junior and high school community. Number one. Number two, many of this is how can we keep, a lot of them don't get their memberships. You know, just like a lot of coaches said they don't hear anything from us, well, they don't keep their US Rowing membership up, so therefore they don't get interaction with us. So that's, you know, that's on them to not be in the line of fire for communications when they haven't done their memberships. And there's over 10,000 coaches that have gotten a certification in the last 20 years, but there's certainly not 10,000 of them that have memberships. Antoinette, we did try to, this year, we are going to try to line up some of those pipelines, you know, for kids who don't go into D1. And one of the things you brought up, being a judge referee, one of the things we wanted to do was add a module onto level 2 so that every level 2 coach in America would also be an assistant judge referee. Like if we're always short judge referees, you know how many thousands of people have their level 2? They could be a judge referee. Like we know how to drive launches. We do it Monday through Saturday. Like we know how to explain to a boat on the water how to turn or how to back into something. You know, a lot of these parents and these dads and moms who get they've never coached or rowed. And so I mean, who better than a coach to be a judge referee? The problem was this year, as you know, COVID hit. You know, like, you know, we had plans for that. We had plans to find ways for long-term athlete development, to try to find ways. So rowing for life. This is a sport for life. And we've been meeting every week now for 10 months on sport for life. How do we make rowing last forever? And so, but COVID got into all of that, and we've been hustling, just trying to get stuff out like webinars and keep everybody active and connected as best we could with a staff of 6. So
do we capture the see how little I know, everybody? Do we capture the junior rowers? Like, do we have them as individuals at all?
If they're members, yeah. If they're members, we can go into what is it? I always want to say the gorilla one, but it's Survey Monkey. No, not Survey Monkey. No. What's
Constant Contact?
MailChimp. I knew it was a monkey. MailChimp. And so anybody, we can set it up for age groups. We can set it up for regions. We can set it up for zip codes. Like we can do all kinds of stuff and how we target an audience in that.
So we do have all of them. So like all of Chris's junior athletes, we have their contact information, so we can
If
follow
they're
up with them?
members, then yes.
If
if
they're
they're-
members, what
yeah.
percentage are members though?
Depends on, I mean, Antoinette and Leslie and people from the Philly area. Philly is a higher concentration of scholastic rowing than it is for club.
But they're all pretty much going to row in the Stotesbury. You have to have your
Yeah,
membership too.
Or members.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah. So I mean, so those kids, yeah, absolutely. I do know programs that, like if they're novice or something, or they don't have to go to a race like Stotesbury, they don't bother having the families. do
Okay.
it.
Okay.
So it depends on, the answer is if they're a member, we have it. Yes.
Okay.
Can I jump in here? Pardon me. This is Mike Taft. I'm from Ann Arbor, Huron Rowing. And hi, Chris. Hi, Amanda. Glad you're.
Hi, Mike.
A couple points as I'm hearing this. I am a coach of a scholastic program, and the vast majority of my kids will not row in college at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
And so the labeling of juniors versus actually scholastic is in itself limiting, because then you get into a definitional issue, which we don't want to have to make.
Mm-hmm.
One thing. Second, I have so many kids who, of course, buy the membership in order to be eligible to row in US Rowing sponsored regattas. And at the end of the day, they're not going to row after this. And that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Of creating a high school team experience at the scholastic level. It's not a junior program. It's not feeding the national team, the junior national team, or anything else. It's whatever else we can do for this. How does US Rowing help these kids?
So I think of junior, and maybe I'm thinking about this the wrong way, and maybe I'm getting stuck in semantics. I just think of junior rowers as rowers, high school rowers under 18, whether they're, and I like at Row New York, our rowers were junior rowers, and most of them never went on to row in college, much less the junior national team. But do I have that wrong, that junior rowers are?
Well, I think US Rowing in the terminology separating a little bit from what the population maybe defines itself as. So it's a definitional issue, because when you get down to the end of the day, when you want to register for, let's just say, the Midwest Rowing Championship, you're scholastic. You're not junior, you're scholastic.
Yeah, it's like in our region, Mike, you have the Scholastic Rowing Association,
You bet.
and you have the Junior Rowing Association for Midwest. So it may not be every region experiences the same full separation of church and state and terminologies, but at least in the Midwest, we have MJRA and MSRA, so it's very well known, those two words.
Well, let me say this, though. It's actually, Mike, I think we're going to disagree a little bit. It's actually the population that has made the two halves of this. US Rowing came in late to junior rowing. I mean, the Scholastic Rowing Association of America has been around for, 100 years? The PSRA, the Stotesbury, well before US Rowing came along. Well, I mean, it wasn't until 97, 98 that youth nationals even existed. So what you're having is communities that identified themselves on whether or not they were a club or a high school program. And then, to take it a step further, in New York, when I started Saratoga, there were 17 teams. Now we've had upwards of 91. So we have scholastic teams that aren't funded by their school, but are scholastic teams. We have scholastic teams that are funded by their school, right, Dave? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's like 16 clubs out of 91, and everybody else is a derivative of. And so then we get into semantics there, because then you turn out like we're a high school club, and then people go, "Oh, you're a club." And they're like, "No, we're a high school team."
Right.
And so it's really the wording is crazy.
Yeah.
And if we try to use junior into, I mean, we had huge fights at the exec board of NYSSRA over the words of junior versus scholastic versus club. And
I apologize for interrupting, Chris. I don't want to get lost in a semantic definition.
Yeah, well, and that's part of the problem. Trying to arrive on common ground is harder than it sounds, because
I was only really hoping to define the group.
Yeah.
The group being just kids on a team in high school who are not going anywhere with this, but still think that the parent body, this US rowing thing, is a value. It's something. It's, you know, it's a piece.
Yeah. Would you call them youth row?
And for parents that we need to understand, because they're paying the $8.75 or whatever the knock is for every kid that wants to register in order to attend a US rowing regatta, right?
Yep.
So with the word, would it be solved if it were they're just youth, everyone's a youth rower, and then they either go in one direction, you know, then maybe they pursue the junior national team, or maybe they don't, but everyone is in the bucket of youth rower, whether you're scholastic or you're part of a club, you're a youth rower.
Interesting idea. I don't mean to define it here. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but something we should be thinking about. Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. Most kids don't go on to, you know, these, and we need to remember that there's this really invaluable experience they have as, I almost said junior rowers, youth rowers, whatever we're calling them.
When
that's
we
right.
came up with my title, the reason why we chose youth is because it wasn't club or scholastic or junior. The reason why we chose youth was because it was the least used out of all the words and the most encompassing.
Yeah.
And also by our rules, just so you know, you can actually be 20 right now and row. not to make it more confusing, but it's not 18 and it's not under 18. It's I mean, with kids starting school later or being held back, I mean, you could be 19, you could be 20, depending on the state you're from, whether or not they'll still let you be in high school. So.
Chance, did you have something?
Yeah, and I hate to go like nickel and dime back, but the process of becoming a member of US Rowing is a convoluted mess. It's more about the waiver and about US Rowing and everyone else trying to advocate responsibility for the life and safety of the child. And there's no membership in US Rowing. It's literally just signing away, I won't sue. That's the experience my kids have and their parents have.
Right.
So we as a sport, and this is way more convoluted and longer process, but as a sport, we have to figure that out, because joining US Rowing isn't joining US Rowing. It's just signing a waiver so you don't get sued, so that US Rowing can't get sued when I drown your kid. And that's a problem.
Right. And thinking about what is the value, right, that all members get, whether they're kids, I don't know what to call them anymore, young people or not, or masters rowers, right? What's the value? And I think that's part of these listening tours, is to help me and US Rowing understand. I don't think it's my place to tell you what you should get. I think it's important to hear from you all. What do you want to get from that membership? And yeah, it's you know, it's, I think, you know, when I ran Row New York, I thought, oh, we were members of US Rowing because we get the insurance. And I think, in fairness, I think I didn't recognize until I started here how many other resources are there, because we haven't done a good job of advertising them. But I also think there's more, and I know Chris agrees, like there's more we can do. And so is there some low-hanging fruit for the youth rowers, because that's what we're talking about, that we can provide when they pay that, you know, that fee to become a member? So it's not just seen as like, oh yeah, it's just so, you know, they're covered, but truly, like, we want them to feel like they're a part of the sport beyond whatever high school or club they're a part of. So what is it that you have? I mean, you're the ones closest to them. Do you think there are things that we can do for them as members?
I think that's an important question, because as coaches, we have this disconnect. This is Mike Taft again. We have this disconnect. Every time we open up the regatta membership thing, the first message we get is, you may not use this for regatta purposes. I mean, give me a break. That's what they're all doing, right? And then second, you hit it right on there. What's the benefit to an individual member to have to pay that little bit of money?
Right.
Yeah, so we have a disconnect going on.
Yeah. And so, but I guess I could think of things. I could think of some things, and Chris could think of a million things that would be of value to members. What I'm asking is really, what are some things, if there are things that you can think of that would be helpful or of value to the kids, where they would think, oh, I'm glad I did this. Now I'm a member. I mean, there are little things we can do, like, happy birthday messages and US Rowing stickers, and enter them in raffles, or invite them to be a part of a junior committee of US Rowing. These are just, low hanging fruit, fun, easy things we could do. I don't think we're unique in that, my husband's he's on a master swim team, so he has to be a member of USA Swimming. And he's like, yeah, I don't get any, like, what do you get? What do you get for that? So I think it's sort of a universal challenge, but I'm not saying that to say like, oh, I don't care. Like, I think I do care, and I know others care. Like, people should feel and should get value. So if you have specific ideas now or down the road, you can definitely shoot me an email and say, oh, I came up with something, because otherwise Chris and I will just come up with it on our own.
Honestly, one of the most basic things, I think this is where that started off, and Mike kind of brought this up when he started off, was the root of like, what happens to these guys girls that graduate high school, and they literally kind of, if they don't go to a college that has any organized rowing, they're left doing nothing for 4 years in the sport.
Yeah.
So I think number one thing is providing value of engagement, of figuring out a way to keep them engaged in the sport and opportunities, whether it's competitions on their own and, following honestly, the playbook of all the virtual challenges that happened this last year, and US Rowing reaching out to these people that don't have a team.
Yeah.
Or the coaching aspect, like I threw in the chat earlier, reffing, figuring out a way to engage them back in the sport. Even if you have a 10% or 5% of effect on that database, that's still helping them out and still helping the organization out, because otherwise there's not really any tangible things you can give them.
Yeah, I love that. And that they're a part of a community forever, right? Because once they're still, once a rower, always a rower, right?
You're not forgotten if you're not going to the IRA agency.
Yeah, definitely. And then maybe there are ways that we can connect I think about the Row New York kids, they don't have these incredible networks at their fingertips, right? So that's a resource in my mind is, mom and dad aren't connecting you to people at Morgan Stanley, but maybe if you're a part of the larger rowing community, you could have that at your fingertips in terms of connections and networking, resume building. I don't know.
It's the same thing as like throwing a fraternity or sorority on your resume and knowing that's going to get someone to spark your eyes.
Yes.
Say you're a rower and we've all been in that situation. You immediately start having a conversation that you never would have had.
Yes. Yeah. I love that.
So can I add in really quick?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So usually when, working with athletes and stuff like that, we tend to think so big picture, when sometimes it's just as simple as sending them a US Rowing cap and they're stoked and they want to get the membership, and that keeps them hooked. Like athletes, I think sometimes we overcomplicate it. Like we think too hard about it, when in reality, just give them a US Rowing bag and they're set, then they get the membership, and then they get on the dashboards, and then they get involved more, so something as simple as, the happy birthday emails is great. Right. Just athletes, like the high schoolers nowadays, they're all about appearance. They want, a lot of my high school boys, they're always like, oh man, I want that Harvard rowing t-shirt.
Especially the boys, right?
Yes. Oh my God.
I know.
I have no idea what it's about. I'm sorry.
So true. I am with you, Courtney.
They want the Harvard.
I don't know. Girls like stickers.
Are they gonna row there?
We do like stickers, guys. That's true.
Yeah, stickers, everything, Hot stickers, like it gets them involved, it gets them excited,
Yeah.
I think that would really get them on board with the membership more, is just sending them goodies. I personally love the magazines, and I think that's maybe one of the best things you guys are doing to keep us, in the know and keep us collected as a community. So I think when they renew or when they do sign up for that membership, like just a little hat will go a long way.
Little something. Yeah,
little something. Because you guys have an awesome logo, like rock it, put it on everything, send it out to them, and the athletes, they'll just make it a currency and trade it off, because they that's currency in our boathouse is rowing gear from different teams from everywhere. They love collecting it. And I think that would be huge.
Courtney, you want to hear something crazy about the hat idea? So this summer I did the summer virtual camp. We had like 90 kids do it. And I thought how cool it'd be to send everybody a hat because I had a box of hats. It cost me $13 to send a $10 hat.
Oh my gosh.
And if you realize $13 to send it, because there was a minimum fee for the size box that a hat goes in. And then, so it cost me, and if it was anywhere out of New York State, the further away, obviously, the more expensive. So for a $10 hat, it cost me on average $13 to $16 to send it. So now we're at $23 to $26 to send a hat to a kid. And by the way, the membership's $9.75. So we've already lost $19 on the membership because we only charge $9.75 for kids.
We'll come up with a better business plan.
Yeah, maybe a chapstick or something, hand sanitizer, who knows? Yeah, stuff like that. And I think, we as coaches get so lost in thinking of the business side of everything that we forget to look at the overall character development, the stress that they're going through. So what US Rowing could do better is also helping educate coaches better as far as how to deal with athletes who are struggling with depression, who are struggling with at-home stressors, because I have no psychology training, but the amount of questions that, I could be better and help answer if I had that training. You know what I'm saying? Like better education for the coaches to create an overall better environment for the athletes.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Yeah, I know I could have used that as a young coach. Like talk about not knowing what I was doing in the early days where you're just like, I guess I'll figure this out. But if we could actually reach out and say, okay, we're doing something on mental health for youth rowers, or we're doing something on, injury prevention focused on youth rowers. I mean, are those things that it sounds like those are things that you guys would take advantage of. Oh, the Youth Coaches Conference.
Chris had Saratoga's, which was fantastic. And before that, actually, I met Chris and Casey at the first or second US Rowing Junior Coaches Conference. And that changed my complete path as a coach, made me a much better coach, and has been invaluable in keeping me engaged in the sport. So the more we can do things like that, the better. Even if there's Zoom, I know not everyone loves Zoom. God knows we're all tired of it, but just being able to engage with coaches face to face.
Yeah.
Really powerful.
Well, did we ever do a youth day at the convention, Chris? Yeah,
we did last year. We've done them at the last 10 or 12 conventions. And last year we did a youth day, but we also did a youth rowing and lifting so that kids could actually learn how to do rowing specific lifts. And we had US weightlifting come in and teach them how to do it. So, a couple of things, Courtney, I did several webinars on sports psychology, and we just did one for the kids with Dr. Lonnie Sarnell about, setting realistic expectations and staying mentally healthy within those expectations. And so there's probably 10 or 12, whether it be trauma-based coaching or whatever, the title was. We've done a lot on all of that stuff. Same with like fundraising, all kinds of, I don't know how many people have gone into the portal, the membership portal, but there's a lot of good stuff in there we did 270 webinars. So there's a lot of, it'll take you all winter to get through it.
Does everyone have that? Do you need the link to it or anything? Because Jack could send it out to this group if you want it at sort of at the top of your inboxes. You have it, Chance, or that means you want it?
I would love it.
You would want it. Okay.
Send it again.
Okay, Jack, can you add that please to the list that we'll send out a link to that. Any other final, because my Indian food is here. I'm just kidding. I mean, it is, but.
One quick thought regarding the question of the use of coaches as referees. I was a New England coach for many, many years, and up there, that's how we ran an awful lot of regattas. It's a different model from what I am experiencing now down here in the Philadelphia area. But there's a lot of experience in having coaches run regattas from duels all the way up to 6-lane regattas up in New England, and it can be done.
Yeah, Stephen, one thing about that to remember is that it's harder and harder to find somebody to insure an NGB, given all that's going on in soccer and all the other sports. The lawsuits are hundreds of millions of dollars. We've had our insurance rates go up back-to-back years now. 2 years ago, they doubled them. They've gone up again because nobody
25%.
wants to take on the liability of an entire sport. So, when you guys do your NEI, well, when you were there at the NAIRA, the schools probably insured that collectively. When you're at an NGB event of any kind, the liability is off the charts now because so many sports have done things so crazy. Well, I mean, what's the guy with soccer or with gymnastics, right? The collective lawsuits are hundreds of millions of dollars. We can't sustain that. So the rules that we have now to guide our regattas, the standards that we have to have in writing in place. Same thing with Safe Sport. They have to be specific because our insurance policy is run by Philly Securities, and they told us that we're grandfathered, but they're letting go of the other NGBs that aren't grandfathered because the risk is too great to insure collective sports organizations now. Nobody wants to do it.
With no insurance right now.
So we're our own worst enemy because of the tomfoolery that we, the messing around that we do.
Okay, any other, and like I said, and thank you, Jack, for adding that into the feed here, that keep the questions coming, send notes. This is, as I see it, this organization is not going to get better on its own. And the more feedback I get, the more I can affect change. Clearly, I don't have all the answers. But I'm looking forward to a bright future. I'm so excited that I have people like Brett and Chris and Jack I'm working with. So I'm very hopeful. There's a lot to get through, and I see you guys as great allies in this. So please keep the feedback coming, even when it's, critical. I want to hear it. We don't get better if we don't, get it all right. Well, you guys are coaches, you know how that goes. And you can do positive feedback too, with your athletes or with, us. You can say, you did that well. That's what I always say with, positive coaching. But let me know, don't be shy. And thank you guys so much. And Sarasota. Yes, thank you all. And you know where to find me.